question. I wonder if the non-dual people are saying nothing is real, but what are the thought processes that follow on from that? Is it non-compatible with what you are saying? Well, there are different non-dual teachers out there who use this concept in slightly different ways, I think. But it's clear that there are many of these non-dual teachers who are saying that nothing is real. And it goes back to this that I've said so many times, the Eastern philosophy, only Brahman is real, the world is an illusion. So what they are saying is that Brahman is undifferentiated, and any differentiation is an illusion. It creates an illusion. And that's why they are saying that whatever we experience in the world, whatever we experience in our own psychology is not real. And the thought processes that follow from that is that when you have this non-dual awakening that some people talk about, you can ignore your own psychology. You can ignore any kind of problems in your psychology because it's just not real. So you just deny the reality of it, which is what many people do. You can also ignore any kind of personal responsibility. You know, if you really seriously believe that there's no one here doing anything, doing is just happening, then you're saying, oh, whatever I did that might have hurt somebody else, it just happened. It wasn't that I deliberately chose to do this. But you see, if you didn't choose to do it, you have no responsibility. You couldn't have changed it. It just happened. So this is what many people, and you can find these videos on YouTube, people who have followed these non-dual teachers for years often, and now they come to see the shortcomings of it. And that's why there are people who are talking about spiritual bypassing, where you're just bypassing the problems instead of dealing with them. You're just making yourself believe that nothing is real. Here's this problem, it's not real, I don't need to deal with it. So basically, you're negating all personal responsibility. And I understand that when you look at the teachings I have given, you can come to ask yourself, what's the difference here? Because in a sense, I'm also saying that we have these subconscious selves that are based on illusions, and we need to come to see the illusion and let go of it. But you see, first of all, there's a fundamental difference between deciding with the outer mind nothing is real and being willing to look into your own psychology and discover the illusions that you came to believe in the past. Because you see, when you're saying, oh, nothing is real, you're essentially saying, I don't need to look at my own psychology. It's all unreal. I just bypass it all. And what I'm talking about is that the spiritual path is a path where you have to look at your own psychology if you want to make progress. You don't have to, but if you want to make progress on the spiritual path, you have to look at your own psychology, because there are two aspects of this. First of all, as I've explained, we can go into this state of duality. And this is, again, I've said it a million times, most non-dual teachers ignore the duality consciousness because it's not real, right? So we don't have to look at it, we don't have to talk about it. We just focus on this wonderful non-dual state of mind where we deny the reality of anything and then we are in bliss. Well, if you feel you're in bliss, you don't need my teachings, just go with that. But as I said, many people have gone for this, believed in this, and after some time they realize, oh, this wasn't bliss after all. I still have the same issues I had before. So what I'm saying is, if you want to be free, you have to look at what it is in your psychology that makes you unfree, because it's only things in our psychology that make us unfree. So in the duality consciousness, we create these subconscious selves, as I call it, that are based on an illusion. And it's because we come to accept this illusion. We, in the past, often in past lifetimes, we came to accept a certain illusion that created a certain subconscious self. And then we have, as I said, going into duality is like going into a maze. We twist and turn, and for every time we make a turn, we are making a decision based on an illusion, and this creates a subconscious self. And in order to get back out of duality, we have to retrace our steps and see each of these illusions we took on, see why it was an illusion, and consciously let it go. I've done this thousands of times in the 48 years I've been on the spiritual path. And that is why I made progress on the spiritual path. If I had bypassed all of this, I would be exactly where I was when I was 18. I guarantee you. So you see the distinction here. Instead of just saying nothing is real so I don't have to look at it, I'm saying you have to look at all the illusions you have come to believe in and see them, consciously see them as illusions, and then let them go. So we can go into duality and we need to go out of duality. But when we get out of duality, we are still not home free because, as I've also explained, the core of our being is the conscious you. It's an extension of our higher self, which exists in the spiritual realm. And when we take embodiment on a planet like Earth, we start at the 144th level of consciousness, take on an illusion to go to the 143rd, take on another illusion, keep going until the 48th, which is where we start when you first take embodiment on Earth. And these illusions, this is not duality. See, there's the distinction to be made between the dualistic illusions, which is what we do when we go into separation, which means we go below the 48th level of consciousness. But in order to get down to the 48th level, we still take on illusions that relate to what kind of planet we are on, the density of matter, how we interact with this matter realm, how to interact with our own physical bodies, and so forth. So these are just illusions related to being in embodiment, so that the spiritual being that we are can actually fit itself into a physical body and operate a physical body. And in order to be free from Earth, free to ascend from Earth, we still have to overcome those illusions. And that's why I said we go up from the 48th level to the 144th level, and then we can ascend. So the other distinction that needs to be made here between what I'm saying and what some non-dual teachers are saying is that I am not in any way saying that everything we encounter, even on Earth, is unreal. It's a, as I've said before, a fatal flaw that's based on the Eastern philosophy, that only Brahman is real, only the undifferentiated is real. It's not correct, because it ignores one fundamental question. Why did Brahman create the world? As I said before, if only Brahman existed, there was a time when only Brahman existed, then Brahman created the world. Why did Brahman create the world? Unless you say, oh, there was no Brahman creating the world just happened. What I'm saying is, there was a being, I call it the creator instead of Brahman, that made a decision to create this world of form we are in, and to design it based on certain principles and laws. And the purpose for this was to give us, who are self-aware extensions of the Creator's being, the experience of starting with a point-like sense of self and expanding that sense of self until we reach the same consciousness, the same level of consciousness as the Creator. That's the purpose of the world of form, our growth in consciousness. So I have a video called How the World Was Created, where I explain how it was created in these levels, these spheres. And so what we can say is that what was created in the world is real in a certain sense, because even on Earth, even though I say that many things on Earth are affected by the state of consciousness of humankind, but still the Earth was created by spiritual beings, ascended masters, who have a fundamentally higher level of consciousness than we have. And what they created was real, in the sense that it isn't created in our minds. Now you can say, if you really want to talk about it in a certain way, you can say, ultimately only Brahman or only the Creator is real. But what I would say to that is that the real illusion we need to deal with here on earth is that things can be separated from the Creator. What I'm explaining in my How the World Was Created video is that the Creator created everything out of its own being. The Creator isn't confused about what it's created. It hasn't created a duality. It clearly experiences that everything in the world of form is out of its own being. The illusion that comes in on earth, because it's an unnatural planet, the illusion that exists only in our minds is that all these differentiated forms are separated from Brahman, are other than Brahman, are different from Brahman. And this comes in because we have, as I said, stepped into duality, where we see ourselves as separate beings, and we think we are separated from our source, and therefore everything else is separated. But this is an illusion, and this is actually the illusion we are meant to overcome in what I call an unascended sphere. And then when we ascend and become permanent spiritual beings, what I call ascended masters, we have overcome that illusion. We have just seen how unreal it is. And we see that everything came from the source. And that's when we gain a whole different way of evaluating what's real and unreal. Because in a sense we can say that all of the forms in the world of form, are they real? Well, it depends on how you define real, right? What is your definition of real? You see, what I've explained several times is that in the duality consciousness, everything is perverted because it's put on this scale with two dualistic extremes. So the duality consciousness is perfectly capable of dealing with the topic of what is real and what is unreal. The problem is that the duality consciousness can't see beyond the scale. So the duality consciousness defines this is unreal, this is real. But it's just something created out of duality, and that means even what the duality consciousness defines as real is actually unreal. Because it was created out of this illusion of separation. So many people, you can look at the saying, only Brahman is real, the world is an illusion. It's actually, for many people when they look at this, it's based on the duality consciousness. I'm not sure that is necessarily how the original Shankara, who made this statement known, and the original Vedic seers saw it. I'm not saying that, because Shankara actually, the full statement is, only Brahman is real, the world is an illusion, the world is Brahman. So he was deliberately trying to get people to think about what is the world. How can a world be unreal? How can it be an illusion if it's actually Brahman? And this is what I'm saying in my videos as well. The world was created out of the Creator's being, and that's why the real illusion is that the world is separated from Brahman, is other than Brahman. And this is what you see when you escape duality. And so therefore you can say that the world of form has a certain reality. Yes, but how do you define reality? See, many people, including scientists, they will define, here is a glass, it's hard, I can feel it, I can touch it. This is real because it has some kind of substance. That which has no substance that we can detect with instruments of our senses isn't real, is what they'll say. But you see, another way to look at this is that we human beings who are in an unascended sphere, we are looking at everything from a certain perspective. And especially when we use the duality consciousness to create these mental images, everything we create is unreal because it's created in that separate mind. But when we escape the separate mind, we see that even though there are many things on earth that aren't really real because they are created out of people's minds, or even the collective mind, there is a certain, the earth was there. The earth was created by spiritual beings with a higher level of consciousness. And therefore, it has a reality compared to what was created in the minds of human beings. So we have the sense of reality, the illusions of reality that human beings create from the state of separation. They are all unreal, but there is a planet here that we didn't create. Humankind collectively didn't create the earth. So that has reality, and that's why it's meaningless to say, oh, it's all unreal. Nothing is real. Because there's something that was created by minds at a much higher level than ours. And what they created is real compared to the illusions in our minds. Now you can go up to higher levels and you can say that, is anything real compared to the Creator? Because everything is created out of the Creator's mind. So what I'm saying is this, this glass, it wasn't created by my mind. It's not an illusion. There is a glass here, right? And even if I died right now and didn't exist, the glass would still be here. Yeah, it would fall to the ground, but it would still be there. So you see, if you define reality that way, that it has to be something absolutely real, absolutely self-existent, not affected by any mind, then you can say, yes, nothing in this world of form is real because it's all created out of mind. So ultimately you can say, yes, only Brahman is real in that way. But be very, very careful with this, because what the non-dual teachers are basically saying, as I've explained in several of my non-duality videos, is that because nothing is real, the goal of spiritual growth is that we awaken from the dream that we exist as individual beings, and we disappear back into infinite awareness or Brahman or Atman or whatever you call it. And that is an illusion. Because when we escape the duality consciousness, we ascend to a higher level of consciousness where we see things we can't see now. And we see that we do exist as individual beings. We have a spiritual self. That spiritual self will exist after your body dies, even after your mind is gone. It's perfectly true, as the non-dual teacher is saying, the separate self is unreal. But the spiritual self is real compared to the separate self. And the spiritual self has a potential, in fact, this is why it was created, to expand its sense of self and reach higher and higher levels of consciousness, going up through all of these layers until we reach the greater consciousness. And that is a real process. And see, you can say, once you are trapped in the separate self, the goal of the spiritual path is to overcome illusion and see that, not that nothing is real, but nothing, no mental image projected by the separate self is real. But there is something outside the separate self, outside our own lower minds, that is real. And so we connect to that. And then we ascend to the higher level, and now we keep going up through these levels until we reach the ultimate reality for our world of form, the Creator. So, I know this probably can sound very confusing, but to say that nothing is real, that nothing that has form is real, it's just not real. Because it negates the purpose of existence. And I can tell you one thing, that even with all the talk that the self is not real, it's like I've said before, you will never experience that. It's true, the separate self is unreal, but the individual self, that is an extension of the Creator's being, is real. Oh, and you can talk about non-self as a mental image, but you can't have it as an experience. Because in order to experience anything, there must be an experiencer. There must be a being who can experience. And if there's no being that experiences, there is no experience. Therefore, non-self, it's not an experience you can have. You can, however, create a mental image that makes you think I'm experiencing non-self. But it's not real. The experience that the self is not real is not a real experience. It's an experience manufactured in the mind, which is what the dualistic separate mind does. It creates experiences, and when you are inside the self, they seem completely real. That's why you have people who are absolutely convinced that the earth is flat. Because they have created a separate self based on this illusion, and they are looking at life from the inside. They are convinced it's real. Many thousands of examples of this. But there is something real outside that sense of reality.